What you're about to see are several graphic illustrations of the severe electrical hazards that can exist in structure fires even after the main electrical switches and the electrical meters have been pulled. We've all been taught the life hazards electricity poses during a fire, so we immediately attempt to eliminate it as a source of added danger. The following video will cover 3 separate incidents that will illustrate the potential dangers to firefighters as a result of open electrical neutrals, either outside the structure or inside. The scene is a single-family dwelling. It's one bedroom. When the fire department arrived, the wall that we're looking at straight ahead is intact, was intact. This wall backs onto a bathroom. All the sheetrock was in place. There was smoke emitting from the baseboard area around here and over here. The occupants had smelled smoke approximately 15 minutes prior to calling the fire department. The fire department arrived, like Chip had said, it took just a couple minutes to get here. This wall also was intact. Firefighters came in, they saw the smoke emitting from there, and they began to rip open the wall. I'm not sure which wall they opened up first, but anyway, they got this open, and then they got this piece open here, and on this side, this stud still connected inside the wall, and they had what appeared to be some smoldering. It wasn't actual open flame, but there was a lot of smoke in there when they opened the wall up. They extinguished the fire, call for a fire investigator, and Lieutenant Iglesias responded. He gave you a little summation at the very beginning. They cleaned up and left, and this afternoon, we came back to re-examine the fire scene. And while we were here, with this stud in place, trying to determine a cause for this fire, which appears as though it was pyrofluorocarbonization, which is a phenomenon that we've been talking about for years, but never actually were able to come up with a power source. So I was putting my hands under here and felt that the wall was warm, got up a little bit higher and hit what appeared to be a burning ember. I mean, it really burned my fingers. So we knew that there was still a heat source in here. So we called for Lou Jimenez to come back, who's the chief electrical inspector for the city of Miami. While he was here, he took some readings and he got 2 volts from the nails that are in the back that were holding this 2x4 in, and this metal body here. He was able to complete a circuit. Now this is after the power was taken off. Florida Power and Light had removed the meter. We had the firefighters cut this 2x4 so we could take it out. And you can see in the back where the nails were coming through, this is where one nail was, which corresponds with this little white spot. I don't know if it can show on the video or not, but right where my finger is, when this was pulled out, of course, that nail just broke off. It had more or less deteriorated. But you can see where it began to deteriorate the wood from the slow heat source. Right after this was all pulled out, we began to see, at the time, it was just a little tiny dot of heat. There was one here and there was one up here, which you may be able to see before we're finished taping. You can see the glow that emits from that heat source. You have to keep in mind that there is no electric power to this building at all. All electric power has been cut, and we're still getting, at times, in as much as 8 volts. So what we've got here is a leakage of low voltage over a period of time. We really don't know what that time frame is. Leaking in through the nails, and also this is a wire mesh, which was in contact with the wood. The low heat source, causes the wood, this low heat source here, causes the wood to dry out. This is not going to ignite an open flame, but what it is doing is deteriorating the cellulose fiber of the wood, which in turn lowers the ignition temperature. And over a period of time, that ignition temperature gets lowered to the point where it begins to smolder and ignite. You can see by the bottom of this 2x4, which was solid, that it just deteriorated it. It just became a powder, a dust.
The glow you're looking at is actually an electrical arc. electricity is flowing between the pieces of the wire mesh. The wire mesh has now become part of an electrical circuit. We suspected that it was an open neutral, and we started to do a systematic check of the electrical wiring to locate where the power source was coming from and how it was getting back to complete the circuit. Keep in mind that the electrical meter to this building was pulled and electricity was still flowing through the wire mesh in this building.
This is the other spot that that we had talked about earlier on. The one on the bottom is the one where the nail was totally deteriorated around the opening. And that one would be approximately up in this area. And now we've lost it again. Oh, there it goes.
Up to now, the highest voltage reading that we've been able to get between this wire mesh and a grounded pipe has only been about 12 volts. We originally came on the scene and were able to get a voltage reading of about 2 volts AC. You have to understand the electricity to this house has been disconnected. What you're looking at is the weatherhead of the electrical service to this building and the building next door. Notice that the meter on the left has actually been removed and a lock ring put on it. Normally you would think that there would be no more electricity flowing into this building. At this point, we've asked the power company to cut the neutral for us and separate it to confirm that there in fact is an open neutral in this electrical service. As you can see, he has cut through the neutral wire at the weatherhead and now is separating the two wires from each other. I am going to reinsert the meter into the electrical socket of the building next door and check for energized electrical conditions next door. As you can see, I'm inserting the meter to the building that was not involved in the fire. We next go to the building where the electrical hazard can still plainly be seen by the arcing in the back of a light fixture on the rear of the building.
So in essence, what we've done is we've duplicated the exact conditions that we found 24 hours after the original fire. By removing the neutral at the weatherhead, we can see that there has been absolutely no difference in the conditions as they were at the time of the fire. So the problem was in fact at the neutral. Here's the neutral that we've taken from the weatherhead, and as you can see, Lou is measuring the resistance across the connector. And as you can see on the meter, it's approximately 115,000 ohms of resistance where there should be none in the connector at all. That's where our problem is. This is the second incident that we're going to be showing you, which is going to be another example of the open neutral. On July 9th at approximately 3:30 a.m., I was notified by Engine 9 that they had responded to a fire scene that referenced a hot wall. When they arrived on the scene, they found that the wall was in fact hot, but there was no visible signs of any kind of fire. There was no smoke. There was nothing other than the heat coming from the wall. They opened the wall up, and they found that the conduit was warm. If you notice in the picture, you can see the 2x4 right behind that conduit that was warm. And this would be the beginning of what we've talked about as being pyrophoric carbonization. If this had gone on for an extended period of time, it would have deteriorated the cellulose fiber of the wood and would have lowered the ignition temperature, etc., etc. In any case, the engine company on the scene continued with their investigation. They realized that there was an electrical problem. So what they did is they went and pulled the mains to this particular unit. This is a duplex. and they put a hazard warning tag on. Once again, they notified me, and in the following morning, I got in touch with Lou Jimenez, the chief electrical inspector, and we went out to this scene because we were concerned about the possibility of pyrophoric action occurring inside this wall. Once we arrived on the scene, which was some 6.5 hours later, we looked up into the outlet, which was just below the area that we had just shown you with the conduit, and you can see the glow in the upper left-hand corner. The conduit itself was energized. Now, this is something that the firefighters did not see the night before. They knew that there was an electrical problem. They pulled the mains and they left thinking they had rendered this situation safe.
What you're looking at is actually an electrical arc. Again, you have to remember that the mains to this apartment were pulled. There's not supposed to be any electricity flowing in this apartment, yet we can plainly see that there's an electrical arc between the outlet box and the metal raceway in this bathroom. It's important to note that not only were the raceways in the bathroom energized, but there were other metal parts, including appliance frames with electrical voltage showing on them. The power company was called to the scene and asked to check for an open neutral. They installed a meter in one of the meter sockets, which checks for open neutrals on their system. It was energized, and it showed that an open neutral exists on their side of the electrical system. Further investigation showed that a connector on one of their poles was defective. The water company was dispatched to the scene so that we could further verify that an open neutral existed by having them remove the water meter. It's interesting to note that part of his gear consisted of rubber gloves and a heavy-duty jumper. We asked him why he carried such equipment, and he told us that on several occasions he has received shocks. He proceeded to take out the meter and after he took out the meter, we re-energized the electrical system and put the jumper cables between the water pipes where the meter was, and you can graphically see the arcing between the two water pipes, thus showing that indeed we did have another open neutral in the electrical system. Should a firefighter become part of this open neutral circuit, it could be disastrous for him. It is very important that firefighters stay away from water pipes, gas pipes, and other metal pieces of equipment when they are going to fire scenes of this nature. And request that the power be disconnected at the pole or at the weatherhead and the wires separated. Our investigation revealed that this was the defective connector, and when we attached the meter to it, the resistance was infinity.
The third incident we're going to cover occurred on July 13th, 93 at approximately 9:35 p.m. at 75 Northwest 32nd Street. I was notified of it at 7 o'clock the following morning on the 14th, and I got together with Lou Jimenez once again, the chief electrical inspector, and we responded out there because once again it sounded like it was a result of pyrophoric carbonization. When we got there, it was a two-story wood frame stucco building. It was two units, one upstairs and one downstairs. When the fire department arrived on the scene, they were told that the wall on the second floor in the bathroom was hot and there was smoke beginning to emanate from that wall. As you can see, the stucco was pulled from the second floor as well as the first floor. On the first floor, there was no real visible sign of any type of fire. However, on the second floor, behind the stucco, there was definite signs of smoldering. This was a perfect example of pyrophoric carbonization. As the camera pulled away, you can see some of the actual soot that's still on the wood. And as he comes around, you can see an example of the pyrophoric action. You can see where the wood had deteriorated as the camera zooms in. Of course, there's a lot of deterioration from termites also, but that is pyrophoric carbonization. Now, it must be remembered that as the investigation ensued in this particular incident, when we arrived on the scene, the stucco was already on the ground. That had been pulled by the firefighters the night before. This is a piece of the stucco that was taken from the exterior part of the building. It apparently came from the second floor where the fire had originated, which you were able to see earlier on. Now, this is the exterior portion. Remember that. We're going to turn it around now to be able to see the inside. And as the camera focuses in, you can see where there was an actual arcing of the energized wire lath. All right, as a result of finding this in the wire lath, we once again felt that we had an open neutral. So the power company was called to the scene and once again used the meter. As a result of using the meter, the determination was made that the open neutral was not on the outside of the building, it was on the inside wiring. So we commenced our investigation to see if we could determine exactly where the open neutral was inside the house.
We continued our investigation and isolated the problem to the second floor unit. We took several readings throughout the apartment, and to demonstrate some of the readings we were getting between metal parts, we took voltage readings between the sink and the refrigerator door. Due to the difficulty in finding an open neutral within a building, I ordered that the electricity be cut to the building and told the owners that it would have to be completely rewired.
What you have seen were several graphic illustrations of severe electrical hazards that can exist in structure fires even after the main electrical switches and/or the electric meters have been pulled. We've all been taught the life hazards electricity poses during a fire, so we immediately attempt to eliminate it as a source of added danger. The intent of this video is to make all firefighting personnel aware of this hidden danger so they can take due precautions.